If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button as well as the bell to be notified of future videos. Thank you.
Hello Internet, we are back. We've got Colonel Olivier. Here with us. My wife is always saying his name in a French way. But you know, she does these things. He spoke about Jacques de Trois, which we will call Jacques de Twee, a flight engineer in New Zealand in the same way. But now the Colonel is back, and thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. We're going to talk today about police negotiators. And I'm quite proud that I remember that word because I keep on saying negotiating. I don't know what's wrong with me. It must be mixing the legal with the military here now. But it's a very specialized position, and there's not a lot of them. I think it's a very, very elite group. And it's a very important task because people do think the police arrive and just kill everybody. It's not like that, but I'm sure that the Colonel will explain to us. Sir, welcome here. Can you tell us about your time as a police negotiator? How do you become one? What happened? Your experiences? We really want to know everything.
Yes, once again, thank you for the privilege. What an honor to talk about this police negotiation. And you know, there is, I think, in general, sort of also misunderstanding on this topic. And you've basically introduced it correctly. It's police negotiation. Because, you know, once a year, I think all over the world, you have the employers negotiating with the unions about money, or you have negotiations here or there. That's not what we're going to talk about today. We're talking specifically about police negotiations and where the police then typically get involved. The other thing is, Koos, I would like also to differentiate in two different negotiation scenarios. One, where the person himself wants to either jump off of the building or he puts a gun against his head. So there's no other people involved other than himself, no hostages. Then the second scenario typically would be where somebody then takes hostages, like an aircraft hijack, or in a building or in a bank, or whatever the case may be. So I would like to talk about those two scenarios. And let me upfront start to give you a couple of real life scenarios, Koos, where a person individually was involved, just to highlight what I'm trying to say. And then later on, I will go more to the hostage situations. And also, I only speak about stuff where I was involved and which is now public knowledge. The first one, as a matter of fact, was just before I resigned from the police in about 93. I was in full uniform still at that stage. You know, that thing van Lapbaitjie and Eysterbaitjie. I was an Eysterbaitjie with all my pips and what have you. And we got a call via radio control that there was a person at the Kelvin power station, those big power stations near the airport that are quite visible from the airport. This person had climbed up a very high ladder and he wanted to jump off there and commit suicide. So I responded as the on-duty hostage negotiator, or the negotiator, police negotiator, and I arrived at the scene. And this guy had climbed up a ladder along the side of a building. He was like 3-4 stories up. So, you know, I was like talking to him from the ground, and I said to him, look, I would like to come up to get closer to him, to talk to him, and so on. And when I climbed up, he climbed higher. So when I climbed down, he climbed down, type of thing. But after a long period of time, not going into too much detail, I did talk him down, and I did speak to him. Now, normally, once you finish with the hostage negotiation or the negotiation, you withdraw, because then other people take over, either, you know, the social workers or the psychologists or whatever the case may be. And if it's a criminal event, then the investigators will take over and so on. But in this particular instance, Koos, when I heard the reasons, his reasons were he accepted Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior. Now, immediately when somebody starts talking like that, you have my full attention, because being a pastor, amongst other things, my heart goes out to people. And that's why I'm actually, even today, I will refer to another instance just now, which happened, was probably 2-3 weeks ago. And what happened with this particular guy? he accepted the Lord, and he just took the word as it is. And the word says, give 10%. He started to give 10%. He couldn't pay his bills, so the people started to take his furniture, take his car, and he was sitting on the floor afterwards, and his wife put pressure on him, and he couldn't take it anymore, and then he wanted to commit suicide. So then I walked the path with him further and could help him spiritually, because it was a spiritual problem, and he did not understand, I think, the word properly. You can't just overnight start giving a tenth of your salary if you've never done it previously, and you have other commitments and that as well. So that's sort of one example where an individual is involved. Another one that I would like to tell you is that I spent a stint as the commander also at the police air wing, and you will see on the course that I sent you, I was a major in the South African police when I did my negotiation course at Malu's Corp. And you'll see all the people that were with me on course and so on. So what happened was, in this case, there was a policeman. Now I'm talking about, of course, in the 90s, where the gay population weren't out of the closet like they are today. And I received a phone call one evening from a policeman, a constable, and he said to me, Colonel. I said, yes. I identified the person, and he actually cocked his firearm over the phone. I heard him cock the firearm, and he said, hulle het my uitgevang, hulle weet nou wie en wat ek is, ek gaan myself nou skiet. So you've got a person, you can't see him directly, but he wants to commit suicide. He's in that position now. And many times it also happens that a person has obviously decided to do this after taking some tablets or drinking something or a combination of the above. But I can say to you, first, that also that one was handled successfully, and I could also once again pastor this person afterwards, not just as a policeman, but then also as a pastor, because people need help, first. And where do they go for help? And this is part of what the legacy conversations are doing. We are creating a platform, we are making sermons available where people can get help. And that is my heart's desire. And I'm so grateful to you and to the other people who are adding positive inputs into the veterans' lives. And then maybe one that just happened 2-3 weeks ago. I got a phone call. Now remember, I'm not a policeman anymore. I'm not a negotiator anymore. Now I'm a pastor. So I continue with the work on that level. So I get a phone call from a person who says, I must please phone this lady. She is contemplating drinking a lot of tablets. She's going to commit suicide. She's under tremendous pressure and so on. So I phoned this woman. I didn't know her from a bar of soap. And I started to speak to her. And one of the first things that she said to me, and I do apologize for using these words, but that is what was spoken. Moenie met jou kak by my kom nie. But I can also, once again, was after a couple of hours, it was handled successfully, and the woman is still alive, and her problems could be dealt with. So those are typically 3 examples that I'm giving you over a span of a couple of years, where just the individual was involved, not a third party or anything like that. Because as soon as you go to a negotiation where there's other people involved, where other people are being dominated, the dynamics change dramatically. And there's different phases and so on. So I will talk to that now at a later stage. So there's a lot of literature on negotiations, a lot. You are an expert yourself, Chris. I actually bow to your superior knowledge with all of your literature that you've written, research that you've done, where you've been involved. So you're an expert in this, and I invite you to come in and add value, to this discussion. Typically some people will say, when you negotiate, don't ask open-ended questions. Don't try and demand a yes or a no from the person and the hostage taken. I would say yes, most probably initially, don't do that. But there's a thing called the yes syndrome. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. The yes syndrome is basically where you try to get this person to say yes to something. even if it's like for cool drink or water or food or something, because and I'll get to the stages just now, but when you start this taking of hostages, everybody is at a very high level of agitation, and adrenaline is being pumped, and hormones are going, and your alertness is on a high level, and you want to see if you're control. At that stage, you get no yes out of any hostage taker. So the skills is there to try and get this person at a later stage to say yes to something, because initially you will identify the different phases, and then you want to get 1 or 2 people out of the building, children, sick people, or whatever the case may be. And then also you can find out how many people there are, what type of weapons there are, and so on. So typically the yes syndrome, and this is where I differ to some of the literature. Not that I say that mine is right, but I think maybe initially you wouldn't ask these open-ended questions, but certainly later on you would. As per my previous videos, I think you've realized, Chris, I have a philosophy in life. You train hard and you fight easy. So let me give you one instance where there was a hostage negotiation course taking place, and we were asked to basically intervene, take one of the guys hostage so they could experience firsthand, what it is. Because you want to negotiate, but you on the other side, but we want now put you on the victim side. So what we actually did in the classroom, without anybody knowing where the hostage negotiation, the theory part was taking place, we bugged the classroom. So we were sitting at a distance, we could hear exactly what was going on. And one of the people what was on course with me on that initial course, the first course, he was on this course as an instructor. So we sent a message to say there's a phone call for him. And when he came out, we grabbed him and we abducted him. And we took him to a remote place where we undressed him right into his underpants. No socks, no nothing, put something over his head. And we basically interrogated him over a period of time, because we knew what was going on in the classroom, because we bugged the classroom. And we knew when we asked him and he didn't answer us correctly if he was lying or not lying. So ons het hom gas gegee, Koos in polisietaal. And for the first time he could experience, and we kept him literally for hours, naked, cold, and so on. So as an instructor, he could go back and really give instruction, because he was subjected to that sort of environment. So that is just one example. And we do that I did that on a regular basis. You train hard and you fight easy. And sometimes it's much different to way other people look at things, but I'm not somebody else. I have to be who I am. Now, I think the closest you can get to this is typically, and I know the Special Forces guys will realize this, they go through this type of training as well, where they are basically taken captive and they are questioned and so on, how to resist that and so on. So that was the type of scenario I was trying to create in this specific instance. So yes, then we got to understand that stress can be a killer. I think this is quite general knowledge. I always say that, us Afrikaans speaking guys would like to eat some meat, and you being a vegan now, you don't do it anymore, but I still do. So we know that you can get a heart attack and stress and this and whatever, and we just carry on until we get a heart attack. We hope that we survive, but stress can be a killer, and there's various reasons for this. And in a hostage situation, everybody's under stress. Remember, the hostage negotiator is under stress. The hostage taker is under stress. All of the people in the room or in the aircraft are under stress. So what happens is there's a thing called the general adaptation syndrome. How does everybody adapt to this new environment? Because adrenaline is being released, and there's hormones and all of this. Your heart rate goes up, your alertness goes up, but nobody can stay at that level forever and ever. So that's important in the hostage negotiation. It's important on the penetration, if there's going to be a penetration. If you want to penetrate right up front, when the alertness is at its highest level, you're going to have casualties. And then also and I'll get to that later on in more detail, also towards the end of it, you go into another very dangerous phase. And I'll explain just now why I'm saying that. So what happens is, there's a lot of physiological things taking place in your body. And you're responding to this very strange environment. And we'll talk just now about the Stockholm Syndrome and the Limo Syndrome and stuff like that. But just think now for a moment. You're sitting in a room in Switzerland, I'm sitting here, and somebody walks into this room with an AK-47 or whatever, and he puts the gun and points the gun to you. Immediately, the situation that you are in changes. It goes to a very high level of alertness, and there are different names for this phase. I like to call it the alarm phase. It's like an alarm goes off, and you're in this environment where it changed within a couple of milliseconds. And this is typically now the fight, flight, or freeze situation. If we think of 9/11, the aircraft that went into the building, the one into, what is that army base of theirs, the Pentagon. But one aircraft fell in the field. Why? Because people got up and they took the fight option. They actually fought with this guy, and the aircraft did not reach its destination. So in this alarm phase, it's dangerous also for the hostage taker because there could be resistance, but it's also dangerous then for the hostages because he could shoot one or two people to show that I'm in control. So that alarm phase, Chris, is extremely sensitive time in the negotiations. And many times when that happens, the negotiator is not on the scene. It could be a uniform branch guy or another branch guy, that responded to that. And so they are then trained to contain the situation, but not to get involved. So I cannot overemphasize that first initial thing. So even if you're now driving in your car and a guy puts a gun to your head, as a civvy on Civvy Street, that's the most dangerous time of the whole situation, because he wants you to know that he's in control. So your drill should be to let him understand he is in control and that you're not a threat to him. So they could be very aggressive at this point in time. As I said, they could even shoot some people until they see that they've got the situation under control, that there are not people that's going to fight back at them, and so on. Then you go into the next phase, which is called the resistance phase. Your body goes and tries to resist all of these senses that it's picking up. How does your body deal with this? Is it the reality? Do you stay at this heightened alert? Does your body start to return to normal? What actually is happening in your body? You don't have control over that, but you have control over your thoughts. So how do you deal with this? And then you go into what I refer to as the accommodation phase. Now remember, this situation can take place for a day, an hour, or 14 days, or whatever the case may be. Now nobody, Chris, can stay at that heightened alert. So gradually the graph starts coming down in terms of the people's aggression and so on. And now and again, it might spike if they think they hear something or see something or whatever the case may be. So in this accommodation phase, people are their bodies are starting to go back to normal. The adrenaline is starting to subside and all of that type of stuff. So that is quite a good time to make your move, to make the talks, to make the yes syndrome work, to try and get some people released and so on. That is why it's important to understand where you are in the stage of the negotiation. Then you come to the last phase, which is the exhaustion phase. Nobody can stay awake indefinitely. Nobody can stay in one place indefinitely. You have medication needs, you have toilet needs, you have food needs, and all of that. Now, this is the next dangerous phase for us, because this guy can decide: 1, do I surrender? 2, do I kill myself? 3, do I kill everybody and myself? So that is also a very dangerous stage. So when you want to penetrate, you need to take these things in mind. You will recall I spoke previously about the Royal Swazi that was hijacked. I'll talk into more detail on that. But the captain himself, who was actually shot in his leg, the captain of the aircraft, said, if we did not negotiate, if we don't penetrate at that stage, everybody would have been killed. So the timing is right. And in that instance, we also got the timing right. And we praise God for that, because everybody's under pressure during something like that. It doesn't matter how many times you do a negotiation. The ultimate goal, is for the person to surrender, the hostages to be released and to go. It does not always happen that way. You sometimes lose people. Unfortunately, that is what happened, and it really does have a negative effect on you as well, because you play this thing through your mind, and you say, did I fail? Was it my fault? You hold an argument of ownership, and you have a look, is there lessons that we could learn out of this and improve on this, and stuff like that. And all of these phases also have a certain time period. Like your alarm phase would be something from an hour to 2 hours. It will then start to subside. You cannot stay at that aggro level for a very long period of time. Your accommodation phase can be, a couple of days. And then you get your exhaustion phase, which, could also be an hour or 4 or whatever the case may be. It depends on the type of person, the motivation of the person. Is he on drugs? Is he on alcohol? Or whatever the case may be, or a combination of those. So to understand these different phases will help you then, in your negotiation, and then also help the communication between the negotiator and the task force who's going to do the penetration. That is also very, very important, because if you do not get that timing right, as I said to you, you want to penetrate in the alarm phase, or you expect people to be released on the alarm phase, it's not going to happen. So you need to understand this, and the training needs to be very sophisticated to understand all of these moves. So if you were to ask me a question, first, what is the most important thing during a hostage negotiation, specifically now, hostage negotiation, is time. Allow as much time to pass as is possible. And the reason for that is because I've already explained the phases for you. The people will then be coming out of the alarm phase, out of the resistance phase, into the accommodation phase, and that's where you can start proper negotiations and try and get people released and stuff like that. So time is very, very important. But as you now know, time has a negative and a positive effect. One, the Stockholm syndrome could take place because of time, and that is to the detriment actually of the negotiator and the security forces, because the Patty Hearst type of thing is that the hostages start to take the part of the hostage takers. So you have a problem there. But the other side is also true, where you have the Lima syndrome, where the hostage takers now actually sympathize with the hostages. And that could be, again, in your benefit. So you need to take cognizance of this all of the time. You need to listen very carefully and attentively what is being said, the tone of voice, the anger in the voice. If you can get eyes on the guy, because verbal communication, of course, speaks 80%. Physical communication between me and you is 80%, because you can see each other. But just talking is about 20%. So you want to get eyes on the guy if you can, a video, whatever the case would be, and that can help you also on the body language and stuff like that. So time is very, very important. So if we go and have a look what happened in history, the hostage taker sometimes also realizes this. And there's been instances, of course, in aircraft hijacks, where the hostage takers actually told the passengers, the pillars that you have in the aircraft, to take off the pillar cases and pull it over their heads. Well, firstly, that you can't see where the people are, and because they want to control the people. So many times what happens, they will also let the men go sit next to the windows and the women sit in the aisle, or let them sit on each other's laps, because then you can't move. So there's a lot of stuff also the hostage takers sometimes also do, because the terrorist type of guy, he does his homework. He goes and sauces out the place, he goes and has a look. He can also do case studies and stuff like that. So he also has strategies going through this hostage negotiation, and he will know sometimes what the hostage negotiator wants to achieve. So having said that, then I think we need to get to the point first where we are saying, what are the different types of people then that take hostages over and above now the person himself? Firstly, we get the criminal, and I referred to this in my previous interviews. You get the criminal guy that just does this for criminal purposes, like the Stockholm syndrome, when they wanted to rob the bank. It was for criminal purposes. They were caught and they were cornered there for a couple of days. Then you've got the political militant type of guy. So each one of these, you're going to negotiate differently with a different strategy. That is why we always try to get the following out. The acronym KNOW. K-N-O-W. What is the kind of hostage taker? What is the number? O, what is the objectives? And W, what is the weapons? Because each of that, as you get that information first, you will then able to deal with it more effectively. If you want to negotiate with a criminal like you negotiate with a mentally deranged person, you're going to miss the mark as well. So the third grouping is obviously the mentally deranged person, and most probably to a certain extent, you could put the person who wants to harm himself under that category for that period of time, because he's not thinking rationally. I'm not sure. So how would the police then typically deal with a situation, a hostage situation? Typically what they will do is, because the hostage negotiators are not immediately there, they will secure the area. In the past, you many times had either the Blitzpatrollie or the hondeneenheid wat eers op die toneel is. They contain that situation, and then the other units come, and then eventually you will get the hostage negotiators. But it's a relatively new thing in South Africa, of course. It goes back to about what was it? Yeah, in the 90s. I left the police in 93. So it was in the 90s, late 80s, 90s that we only started hostage negotiators. And if you have a look what's happening in South Africa currently with the amount of people taking hostage. I saw this morning again, a guy that was taken hostage in Cape Town, an Indian guy, was released after 100 days. So this is something that's taking more and more place. And it's something that is more and more relevant all of the time. So there's a lot of cases taking place, and it's also very important to note that South African negotiators were also involved with South Africans taken hostage in Somalia. Ernst was the police psychologist at that stage. There's the credit is given to him. He's a guy that I work very close to with. You'll see him on the photo that I sent you as well. So bearing in mind that the hostage situation can carry on for days and even hours, you would also need a relief factor for the negotiator. But also, even before you get the relief factor, if the specific hostage taker and the negotiator have a conflict of personality, you need to replace that negotiator as quickly as possible. Do not push through and try and dominate if you see there's a conflict between the two people. And that could be for many things could cause that to happen. So that would also be important. I think one thing that I also want to say is the following, that if and when you come to the fore that there's going to be a penetration, you feel this thing is coming to an end, you can perhaps hear this guy is giving over, whatever the case may be. And you asked this question in the previous video, must you assist, must you do something? Specifically in this situation, do not do anything. If you can, fall down on the ground, lay flat, do not move, do not make any sudden moves. If you can't fall down, you're sitting, bow your head, cross your arms to show that you're not a threat to anybody. Because once again, when those people are storming the building, whoever it may be, the special task force, or in other countries, the defense force or whatever, storms the building, they are also at this very high, and they are seeing any foreign movement as a possible threat. And sometimes they're also using stun grenades. So when you're throwing the stun grenades in, it also over and above the bangs and the noise and the flash, it also emits some smoke. Sometimes you can't see very, very clearly. So those guidelines, of course, I would say very briefly, without going into strategies and stuff like that, is what an hostage negotiator does, the different types, the different phases it goes through, and so on. So I don't know if you would like to comment at this stage or ask the question.
I actually have a lot of questions, I must tell you, because this is a theatre or area which I really, really enjoy talking about. And it's nice for me to speak to the experts. And of course, I do realize there's certain things you simply cannot answer. So please don't hesitate and say, no, you can't answer that. But when you approach that aircraft as a negotiator, are you in any danger? Has it been known that negotiators has been shot down without even being able to start negotiating?
Well, I can speak to the South African scenario, and because we were in the fortunate position to learn from people who had already invented the wheel, we took that wheel, and I think to a certain extent we perfected that wheel. Now, you will recall, I think in one of the previous conversations, the first aircraft hijack in South Africa, I'm talking about in South Africa now, was the Swazi aircraft to Jan Smuts Airport. The other one was the 707 Air India to Durban. In both those instances, there was no facilities for the hostage negotiator. So the only place that they could negotiate was from the control tower, because the frequency that is used in the aircraft was, on the ATC, the air traffic controller frequency. But after 94, when I left the police, I went to several airports overseas, and I looked at models to develop a specific facility for hostage negotiators, which had all the radio comms and that type of stuff in. And I was instrumental in designing the hostage negotiating room at Jan Smuts Airport. So primarily, Chris, the room consisted of 3 different sections. The one isolated section was just for the hostage negotiator. So all the radios with all the frequencies were there, and everything was being taped. So you need that taped for statements afterwards and for leading of evidence. Then there was a big room, and in each of the rooms there was a fold down flap that opened. So it was closed. Only once activated, you opened the flap, and each discipline, the defense force, the security branch, national intelligence, customs, all had their own predestined area. But behind that was a glass wall, the third room, where all their seconds were sitting. So those were the people that were doing all the talking and the clutter in between, so that the people sitting in the main room, the decision takers, had not all of this radio comms and clutter and so on. So they could sit and talk and strategize and so on. So in that instance, you are not exposed to the hostage taker. You remember David Protter and so on. We had the guys in the street saying, "Here I am, talk to me," type of thing, and so on. We've passed that stage many years ago. So there are dedicated hostage negotiating centers at the airports now, of course. Obviously, when you now have a thing in a bank or in a building, the police have a mobile control unit. Once again, yeah, you've got a problem because this guy must probably, you need to contact them on a landline or on a cell phone or something like that. But you want to try and talk directly to the hostage taker, and not via interpreter or the captain or the bank manager or something like that. So yes, if you go physically self to the place, you could very much become a victim. Particularly if you're approaching in the alarm phase and you have not taken cognizance of the different stages, you have not built a rapport with the hostage taker, your life could certainly be in danger under those circumstances.
Now, I'm a pro flying squad member, and I must tell you, I got there because my commander thought I belonged there. Must I say, he came out of that unit, and I do describe him in my books as one of the best policemen I've ever seen. And this fellow was everything I could believe a good officer should be. But we had a saying in the flying squad, which I'm sure you're aware of, sir, but whoever is first on that to kneel on the crime scene has command. And of course, we would always be first. I mean, there's no such thing as coming second. There you were 3 minutes. 3 minutes since you get the radio order, you're out there and you're securing the. But often we had to intervene. We couldn't wait for the special task force to arrive because this guy was killing. And then we would go in regardless. We would not hesitate at all and go in. Now, I wrote a book, Terrorist Takedown, a few years ago, actually under my own name, because I was concerned what was happening in the US. It seems to me their police, sheriff departments, which of course is really not like the South African police or the South African Railway Police, not at all. You can't even really look at the two at the same light. But they've got all the equipment, but they do not seem to go in. They stand and wait outside while this terrorist is shooting people inside. They've done it twice now, which I can think about. 2016, out a gay nightclub in Orlando, in Florida, where my late wife comes from there. She wasn't gay, what to say. And nothing gay about me, but what to say. But they were waiting outside, and this guy was a jihadi type of fellow. And he was killing all the gay people, the poor guys were inside, and they just waited outside. They didn't make a move. The same happened about a month ago with a school, I believe in Texas or somewhere, where also they started just waiting outside, and they did the same with the Vegas shooting. They just waited outside. I cannot imagine this would have happened in the South African police or the railway police in my time. We would have gone in regardless of the cost. So now what I want to ask you, sir, with this long story of mine is these two things. I want to ask you two things. Who has command of that scene once you people arrive? And secondly, sir, would you as a negotiator be aware of an attack going in? Or would you actually give a command to go in?
The hostage negotiator, what you try to convey, Koos, because remember we said time is the most important thing. You'll always convey as a hostage negotiator that you're junior, you can't take any decisions, you have to refer this to certain people to get decisions and so on. But let me answer your first question first. The red line in the negotiation is when people are being shot. There has to be an immediate intervention. Otherwise, I mean, what's the purpose? You know, you can just step back, wait until everybody's shot, and then go in type of thing. Although if somebody has been shot initially, you know, there were hijacks where they shot the Marines that were on the aircraft, threw the body out of the aircraft. There wasn't an immediate storming of the aircraft because the situation had then gone into the accommodation phase. But the red line is if people are being shot, whoever and whatever's on the scene at that point in time will go in, because that's part of your calling as a policeman to protect life and property and limb. So that's important. The second thing was who's in command. Now, remember, we have a lot of disciplines. In the police, we had bomb disposal guys and we had the investigators and so on. So obviously, the first unit to come will secure the area. If it's an explosion that has taken place, then obviously the scene is then taken over by the bomb disposal expert for two reasons. One, to make sure that the scene is safe. You know, the tactics was always put a small bomb off, draw everybody there, then the big bomb goes off type of thing. So the bomb disposal guy, irrespective of his rank, will take control of the scene. And once he's finished and declared the scene safe and gathered all of the exhibits, you know, they say ons polisman was platplote en strap als plat die bewysstukke ook. So the scene is done first, and then he hands over. So the initial guy arriving at the scene will take command until, in this case, let's say it's a hostage situation, until the hostage negotiator comes. But obviously, there's a lot of powers that be And depending on the type of pressure, remember what I said also, that in certain instances the government is the primary victim. So we need to have a look, what is the objectives and so on. But the negotiator will stay in command of that situation until he's relieved, maybe by another negotiator. I refer to the negotiation of the Royal Swazi, when the generals wanted to know what was going on and bothering me, while this guy shooting holes through the fuselage of the aircraft. I literally told the general to get stuffed. And I mean, as a full colonel, he was probably could have fired me the next day if he wanted to. But the hostage negotiator, or the bomb technician, or the crime technician stays in control until he's finished his work. And I think that should answer your two questions.
Do you people as negotiators have some kind of an oath, like a Hippocratic oath, which doctors have been stated? In the sense, are you allowed to lie to the one you're negotiating with?
Of course, I'm not aware of an oath like that. I certainly didn't take one. Also, from my Christian side, I won't take oaths very lightly. So I'm not aware of an oath like that. The situations are so diverse, Chris. Not any two situations are the same. Not any two people that you're dealing with are the same. The situations differ. So no, I'm not aware of any type of oath like that at all. Other than, I think as policemen, we say we are here to protect and to serve. And that is, my motto that I've always worked by.
But within reason, is it possible to bring this guy on a false pretenses for the good of a cause?
Well, I think there could be danger in something like that. Because if you forget what you said, and because you're under a very stressful situation, and you forget, and at a later stage you say something which contradicts yourself, you're going to break the trust relationship that you're trying to build with this person. Now, also particularly if it's a person that's already got low self-esteem, and he wants to kill himself, or maybe him and his whole family, whatever the case may be, nou kom jy en jy lieg nog vir hom, it's going to have a very negative impact. So I personally would not lie to him. I most probably would withhold certain things from him, but I would not directly lie to him that he could catch me out, on a lie.
I've heard a story, so I don't know if you can confirm it or not, but South Africans are known as big handshakers. Really, we shake hands, that's what we do. In fact, during the Boer War, some American guy wrote a book about the Boer War, and he called the Boers the Army of Handshakers. Because they would walk up to every Englishman they captured and shake hands and introduce themselves. They were really friendly people if you think about it. Now, I've heard about the negotiators who walked up to this lone gunman, took his hand out, and when the guy grabbed it, he smacked him from the other side. Would that be a logical thing, or would you rather not go that route?
Well, all things are open on the table to diffuse that situation. All things. I personally have been involved, if I think quickly, in 2 or 3 situations, because of my self-defense background and so on as well, where if I could get near to the person, I actually could disarm him, put him into a lock, and subdue him. So all things are on the table. All situations and all scenarios differ, but you must be sure of what you are doing. Don't hit at him, and you don't disarm him, dan het jy in helse fight wat losbreek. But yes, all things are on the table, and most certainly you want to successfully resolve the situation. And you use everything at your disposal. Sometimes if you have to use tear gas, you use tear gas. If you're using dogs, you use dogs. You have to know what is in your arsenal, what you can use, because it differs from scenario to scenario.
I've been mentioning this before, and I want to mention this again, that there is a book available on the Special Task Force for Highway Police Special Task Force website. And I've been reading this book. And I can tell you, I've been roaring with laughter here, and sometimes I had a few tears. I have to to say that a wonderful book. I'll leave the links here. Please have a look at this book, because there was this one constable who came late for duty. And so we had to make a plan here, because every single one in people who write their stories in that book says you don't come late for duty in the South African Railway Police. There will be consequences which you won't like. Now, you can't see the colonel, but he's nodding you on the other side. Highly disciplined force. So we saw a big Zulu guy walking here somewhere, and he said to me, "I want to search him." And as it happened, he found some stolen goods on him, which suspected stolen goods. And there's many ways which we actually as policemen know when something is stolen. The first thing you look up for is for the plug. See, there's this Wi-Fi system. Does it have a plug on, or was it cut? Was the cord cut? Because that's what they do sometimes. They just cut that cord and they walk with it out. And if there's two of those Wi-Fis, when both are cut, then you have to start thinking, well, okay, probable cause. And you have wide powers as a policeman to to search people. Interesting, according to the law, is that a man may not search a woman, but it says nothing of a woman searching a man, a female. We always one of these police jokes. But anyway, this Zulu fellow was quite a big man himself, and so they started one hell of a fight there between them. But he managed to overcome him. He managed to grab hold of him, and he managed to bring him to the police station. And I understand that the sergeant wasn't that displeased with him. But this brings me to body language, things like that. He said to me that body language is very, very important for you as a negotiator. Does this mean that you can negotiate where you sit now over Zoom, that negotiate something, let's say in Nigeria, if there's no other option available? Is that possible?
Yes, very much so. You know, there's so many aids available today, computer algorithms and so on, that you can plug into computers that will actually tell you if you're lying or not lying, what your stress levels are, and so on. So you could most certainly do that. You want to build a rapport with that person. I mean, I'm building a rapport with you, spending time with you on a certain subject. You adding value, I'm adding value. We're talking, jy weet, ons vul mekaar aan, and distance. I mean, you're sitting in Switzerland, halfway across the world. I'm sitting here. So certainly you could do that. It probably would not be the ideal situation, but certainly you could definitely do that. The most important thing, you need to understand when to engage and when to disengage. I've used some examples that if there's a conflict between the hostage taker and the negotiator, you withdraw immediately. When you start becoming tired, you know, when it goes over a couple of days, you know, that you need to change negotiators and so on. So you need to understand when to engage, when to disengage. And obviously, because of technology today, you could definitely negotiate from a distance. I would feel comfortable with that. I mean, I've negotiated with people over the telephone, some sitting, you know, very far from me, and I gave you some examples. I very successfully diffused those situations, and then, you know, the people are still alive today.
Which brings me to a practical point. If someone here is listening now to us, and he knows there's a comrade out here who's on the suicide threats and making noises in that you can see there's something wrong with him. And there are people who say, yeah, I wat sê hy gaan dit nooit doen nie. That's not true actually, is it? I mean, sometimes they actually do go ahead.
Very much, Chris. You know, a couple of years ago, I was living in Kempton Park. My neighbor living next door to me worked for South African Airways. In Kempton Park area, a lot of people work for the Airways or, you know, the explosive factory or Kelvin or so on. And, you know, you would greet, you would say hello and so on, you know each other's names and that. And this guy basically walked a couple of 100 yards to a shopping center and just blew his brains out. Now, me being a pastor, being a hostage negotiator and so on, you know, I wasn't even aware of the stress that this person was going through. So the point that I'm trying to make is that you need to understand what's inside the person's head. And the only way to do that is to spend the relationship time with that person. You know, my wife, and you've met her, sy sê my klein generaatjie. She says the following. She's one of a twin. Her twin sister is in Nelspruit. She says this: if I don't spend time with my own twin sister, then I don't have a relationship with her. And that is what hostage negotiation is all about: to build a rapport, to build a relationship with the person on the other side. One of the books that we handle during hostage negotiation, the title of the book is Handling the Man with a Gun. That guy who's got the gun, hy slaan die gitaar my maat. And how do you handle him? What's going on inside his head? How do you get him to leave his initial idea of taking his own life or taking somebody and take your idea that you're trying to sell to him, that there's a better way out than the way he wants to follow? And then this brings me, of course, actually to the Christian side of it. This is extremely important. Most of the people that are in this situation if you could, and you could sit with them and understand what they're going through, and by spending quality time, listening to them, counseling them, you must probably be able to diffuse that situation proactively even before it takes place. Hostage negotiation is now reactive. You're at a disadvantage because you're already going through this alarm phase and all of these phases and so on. So that is why I do the videos called Damaged Goods 1. We are all damaged, Chris. You are damaged, I'm damaged. We all carry a baggage from the past. But you know what? We can deal with it if you get the tools to deal with it. And I appeal to people that, you know, if you feel you're at your last straw, talk to people like myself. Talk to people like your pastor, your dominee, or whoever. Don't feel ashamed. We are there to assist. We are there to help. Recently, again, a woman, she wanted to commit suicide because she didn't have money to pay her rent. We could get together, we could assist. If I can tell you, Chris, how many veterans I've helped over the last 2 or 3 years, you know, with food, with wheelchairs, and I know there I could make a difference. You know the old story of the red tide down in Cape Town, waar die miljoene krewe uitspoel, and the guy walks throwing them back in the sea. And the person says, but you can't make a difference, man. Look at all these krewe here. And he says, but to this one, I can make a difference. Now, the same thing, Chris. The persons that you and I and the other people can reach, we can make a difference in their lives. They are important. They, you know, in Genesis 1, it says that we are created in God's image. We are the temple of the living God. And that is what I actually give demonstrations in that Dangerous Goods 1, 2, and 3. And then I go and talk about PTSD. You know, when that incident that happened, it's etched in your mind. So all of the sounds and the smells and the taste that happened, that triggers that at a later stage. How do we deal with that? And it's there. You know, it can and will be addressed if we are just given the opportunity to do that. And that is why, from my side, my debriefing was to myself. Remember in the old days, if you went through a contact or something like that, you went to the pub, you had lekker dronk geraak, and that was your debriefing. Talking about things, venting about things is part of the debriefing process. You understand that you're not alone. Other people are going through this as well. Sometimes even more bad than what you are going through or experiencing. So my way, of course, was I wrote a book. Nothing to do with the police or anything like that. I wrote a book called Who Do You Think You Are? You see, if I give an example like Joseph in the Bible, he's the youngest brother. Hy's lekker wingat. Hy het hierdie jas met baie klere aan en hy's die jongste, né? But he goes to do a good thing. He goes to take food to his brothers. And they wanted to murder him, but they decided against it and threw him in the pit. So if you asked Joseph on his way to his brothers, who do you think you are? He would tell you, no, I'm the youngest. My father loves me. Look at my coat of many colors, and. But a couple of hours later, when he's in that pit, if you asked him then, who do you think you are? I think his answer would have changed. Or when he was put in jail because he didn't want to sleep with his boss's wife, etc., etc. Now the same thing was, here's a guy, he's a senior manager at Armscore or SAA or wherever, and he's fired for no reason. Today he's a bestuurder of a kolonel, of a corporal, of what. Tomorrow he's nothing. What happens? And this, in the pandemic, in the last 2 years, I've seen this happen time after time after time. Businesses close down. People, relationships break down. So if your image is built around die kolonel of die brigadier of die bestuurder of die rugby speler, you'll be surprised how many children at school who play first team rugby because they couldn't play rugby, didn't know anymore who they are. So my book says, who do you think you are? Because if you understand who you are, if you understand who God is, then and only then can you get healing. Otherwise, you're going to put a band-aid and a band-aid and a band-aid, and it gaan sweer onder daai pleister. You've got to get to the point where you know that you know that you know who you are. And only then, Chris, will you have true freedom. Because who God sets free is free indeed. That's what the word says. So the religious side of this has to be brought in, whether we like it or whether we don't. And I want to go so far as to say, if there are one or two people that feel offended and so on, please forgive us. But I firmly believe this is the answer. We are not Bible punchers. We are not telling you to go to this denomination or that denomination. But we're here to say, folks, we are here to help. We have years of experience. We have training. How can we help you? First step, I need to know who you are. I need to make contact with you. And I'm available 24/7. 2 o'clock in the morning. Eskom wakes me up in any case with load shedding, so it doesn't matter. Wake me up. Give me the opportunity to help you where I can. And I would also like to know that I can talk to some people if I have a challenge, because all of us go through challenges from time to time. And this channel of yours, this legacy conversation, because I have great expectations in my spirit, man, what the Lord is going to do with us. Because we all want to belong to us. We all want to belong somewhere. We all want to feel we're part of the bigger, we all have a herd instinct in us. They will deal wees van iets. And we're inviting the people to come on board, look at these things, not once, 2 or 3 times. I've looked at Roland de Vries's conversation. This is an Eysterman. I've looked at J.P. Miller's one. I've looked at several of the people. I can't remember all the names now. And I'm going to look at more and more. J.P. Fourie. I looked at his. And you can understand, you're not alone. You go through the pit sometimes. You go through the leeuwkuil. You go deur die brandende oond. But the sun shines tomorrow. Even if you don't feel that is possible. The hostage negotiator, those people taken hostage, they feel it's going to end now. But it's not. It's not. It can. But then, even if it does end, and you saak met die Here reg is, what a pleasure. Because I read the last book of the Bible. That sê ons wen. That's why I'm so positive, Chris. And ek lag vir die lewe. Want die lewe is 'n lied. And I can give you my testimony, because you read my book. I've had a very, very, very hard time. Ek het baie mense aan die dood afgestaan. And I'm not talking even in my police career. There also, people were shot next to me and killed, and I buried them and so on. But I'm telling you now, I know what I'm talking about from experience. Experiential learning. It's not something I read in a book. So give me the opportunity, guys, and we'll stop it pad saam.
Well, we're definitely going to take you up on that, Arthur, because I'm going to record his sermon on Sunday. By the time you people look here, it would have been 2 weeks ago, or a week ago, but it's going to be available. And I'm also going to ask a colonel here, or a pastor now, we switched, if we can have like a Zoom link, which I can put up every Sunday on Legacy, if people want to join the church service from somewhere and get a little bit of, no, a lot of hope actually, because that's the message. The message is there's a God which is creator of everything.
Amen.
And these people, these animals can do what they please. They're not going to win this fight. As long as we stay in his shadow, I would say. So we want to do that, and I want to ask anybody and everybody here, come and join us. If you know about somebody who is threatening to commit suicide or to harm himself or others, it's not the time to keep silent and to be Swiss and to keep to your own business. No, that's where you start calling Andre Olivier, or you contact me. I'll get hold of him as well. There are help out there. Don't think you're alone.
Yes. You know how important that is, what you just said, Chris. The Federal Aviation Administration of America brought out a video called "You're Not Alone," because that is what the enemy, amongst others, wants you to believe. You are alone. There's a slagoffer and so on. But that video is specifically for the pilots that are sitting at 35, 36,000 feet with a gun against his head. Now he feels he's alone up there, but he's not. There's a whole support system back home there to support you. And the same in this environment. The enemy wants you to feel you are a loser, you're alone, you're out, you're gone. Believe what the Bible says about you, not what the enemy says about you. Man, the Bible says jy's meer as 'n oorwinnaar deur Jesus Christus. Romans 8 says there's no condemnation for those that are in Christ Jesus. The Bible says you are seated in heavenly places with Jesus. The Bible says, as he is, so are you on this earth. The Bible says, jy stop alles in staat deur Jesus. Man, you can only win. Yes, that you go through a leeukuil, for sure. That you're in the storm in the boat, for sure. But tomorrow, the sun will shine. That I promise you.
Well, we've come to the end of this session, and we got to bring the Colonel back again in the future. I'm glad to tell you that he gave me names of a lot of people from the Railway Police who we can talk to. I spoke to some of them already. I still have to record them. One of them is actually a female sniper. She was part of the Railway Police Special Task Force. Very unique woman, I would say. The other one was a great explosives expert, which we're going to do. And so I would invite all of you, please, if you have a story to tell us, please come and tell us about it. But I'm telling you, we're going to enjoy the Railway Police Play channel. I'm setting it up. If you perhaps were part of the Railway Police, sir, come, madam, come and talk to us. We want to know everything about your service. We're learning a lot, and until we meet again, God bless.